You're tuned in to the Vintage House Show, home to the original stories of the history of house music as told by the legends, pioneers, and icons. Hosted by Kevin Mega McFall, Lori Branch, and Lauren Lowry.
All right, here we are. Welcome to the Vintage House Show, everybody. Brought to you by the Modern Dance Music Research and Archiving Foundation. We're so excited. I'm so excited because I get to be here with my bestie friend from so many years ago, Miss Robbin Kent. Thank you for joining us, Robbin, all the way from Miami.
Yes, thank you for having me. It's 72 degrees here.
Rub it in because it's winter in Chicago.
I heard you like down to 20, right?
Ooh, it's nasty cold out. I'm looking out the window right now and it's snow and ice. And well, hey, listen, you know, one thing I like about the cold weather in Chicago, the criminals just tend to like go inside.
Right. It's too cold to rob somebody.
I know. So knock on wood, they stay inside for a while. But anyway, Robert, I'm just so excited to talk to you. This is a take two. We actually tried to do this once before, but we had some issues in the studio. So thank you for taking time to come back to us, to talk to us more about the show. I'm going to use my mic just to get a little bit closer so that we have some good audio for us. But let's start from the beginning. So look, Robin and I have known each other. I think we met when we were teenagers, clearly.
17, 18.
Yeah, we were babies back on the south side of Chicago. I think we were talking about some of our mutual friends like Aisha Mays and Rodney Patterson and all those good folks. But I just remember meeting this really smart, classy, funny, wickedly intelligent person. I was just like, who is Robbin Kent? And they were like, that's Herb Kent's daughter. I was like, you mean punk out like on the radio, Herb Kent? Yeah, like, oh my God.
I love it.
So I was thrilled. And
well, it was so effortless. I mean, I feel like I've known you. We
just
had an instant click because I met you through Aisha.
Exactly. And she was a sort of a little bit of an iconic figure in that era back then. Everybody kind of knew Aisha and the groups that she was in, and the Coteries and Just Us and all. Were you in any of those clubs?
No, because I didn't go to high school with you guys. I was in Dallas, and I would see you guys every summer and Christmas break. I would come home and hang out and be at your doorstep every day.
That's right. I remember that. So you grew up in Chicago, but you went away to like school where you were living there. Talk about that, because I think that's an unusual experience for most Chicagoans.
Okay, so what people don't really know, I went to boarding school out in Illinois, and the school was called Mother of Sorrows, and they're still open today, but they just do like day schooling, and it was a boarding school, but they had day students come. But on the weekends, I would come home. My parents would either pick me up or have remember jet livery cab?
Yes, of course.
They would either send the jet livery to come pick me up out in Blue Island and then bring me home. And any given weekend, I come home, I would see, Smokey Robinson and my dad playing pool, or stuff like that. It was just like nothing to me, But shortly, then fast forward, my parents separated after we moved out to Olympia Fields. And then when they parted ways, my mom had taken me to Dallas. So I went to high school there. I went to Lake Highlands High School, and then I graduated, went to Spelman for a hot minute. And then, what did I do after that? Then I came back to Chicago, went to New York, came back to Chicago, got pregnant. Morgan Proctor?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. His mom was Barbara Proctor, a very an amazing pioneer woman in the advertising industry. She was like one of the first Black women. So just ironically that he and I have a son, which is the most amazing accomplishment, I have to say. I know that's so cliche. Everyone says that about their kid, but Evan has been such a rock for me in the sense of, because Lori, I'm such a wild, and my son is he's a Virgo, so he's real cool.
I met your son. I remember the contrast. I was like, he's good for you.
Yes. And he's walked me off of many ledges, and even going through my probate. That was a journey. Fast forward. He was just always in my ear saying, Mommy, make sure you stay in chair therapy. And at first I'm like, what does that mean? Chair therapy, what I'm doing now, sitting down, staying in your lane and staying focused, and don't be all distracted.
Wow.
social media where you're being bitter and lashing out in that way. So he's really been a really good part of my life.
He sounds like a really smart guy. I know he's not a kid anymore. He was a kid the last time I saw him.
Yeah, he's 32 now. He
Oh
works.
my God.
I know,
These
right?
years are flying by.
He's a big man.
Oh, wow. All right. So you sped through a lot. We're going to back up a little bit to just talk about what it was like. You were in your dad was a pioneer, legendary. We're going to talk all about Herb Kent, but what it's like for little Robbin coming home and seeing Smokey Robinson growing up in that environment.
It was like I know nothing else to compare, to be honest. People say,
Yeah.
oh, what's it like, having her with your dad? It's like that's all I know. And I knew that he was special early because just the attention that people would give me and the way they would be all like, oh, what do you, just like that kind of thing. So for me, and it kept me in a space of knowing that I was a little different, but it kept me
Yeah.
in a space of being very grateful. I knew the difference. So my dad would always say that, you can never, go back and change time, love yourself and just
Mm-hmm.
be in the moment and just be transparent. And people will always see and appreciate that, so
Yeah.
kind of,
What other celebrities did you see in there? I mean, like you meant, I
oh,
mean, Smokey's
Shaka
a big
Khan,
one.
Shaka Khan,
So did
Earth,
you
Wind,
meet Shaka Khan?
she was my teacher when I
Oh
was
my
going.
God.
I was going to Ancona, and her
Oh,
her
yes.
her stepmother Connie was my teacher. And then I guess she heard that Herb Kent's daughter, because dad will come by and pick me up, or my mom or my
Mm-hmm.
housekeeper or whatever. And I remember, maybe I think it was her and my mother got to talking, and then my mother was always like the go-to. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
Herb, you gotta listen to XYZ. So yeah, dad
Right.
kind of helped push her through, and got her where she was.
Wow.
Starlights, you know. Gosh, Arnold Schwarzenegger, but I met him when I was older. But
Okay.
further on. But yeah, just growing up, that was my kind of household normal.
That is really awesome to hear. These are like iconic figures in Chicago. I'm guessing that your dad probably had the opportunity to interview and meet all of them. I think about the Emotions and Earth, Wind and Fire, and so many others who came out of Chicago South Side and West Side.
Dad went to Hyde Park High School.
Okay.
He went to Hyde Park High School, and what's Minnie Rippleton? She went there.
Minnie Riperton. Did she?
Yeah, she went there, and Donald Stewart, he's the president of Spelman College, and
Mm-hmm.
other people, came out of Hyde Park High School. So yeah, and Dad just, when I say music and radio is his life, he
Yeah.
would do it for free. I mean, it was so much about the people and the art. He was never a big money guy. Dad never bought like a bunch of fancy cars and
Mm-hmm.
big house. He was very modest and just stayed very, true to his passion and his art.
Yeah. I was thinking about, and Laura and I are working on a project where we're kind of dissecting the 80s and the 90s and sort of this early era of sort of house music culture and then house music genre and
Mhm.
sort of how it all came to be and all of our stories and how we intersect with that. When you think about, house music, what does that term mean for you?
Oh my God, Punk Out Hour, Frankie Knuckles, God, Better Days, The Warehouse. It just puts me in a state of. I remember when I saw this documentary that you and Aisha did, and there was one of the people in the interview was saying how their first time going to I think it was the warehouse, and
Mm-hmm.
how just walking up, you can hear that, and the closer you
Yes.
get, the more it just took over your body. I mean, it was just like a different world. Things
Yeah.
were so much. It wasn't so much chaos. It wasn't, just different. Like, how
Yeah.
our parents can say things are different in their time, but it just puts me in a space of kind of just warm and
Mm-hmm.
just in a good, like a hug, if that makes sense,
Mm.
you know, like a
Yeah, I
different.
love the way you describe that.
Hmm.
Because it was warm. It's funny that I've never heard it described that way before, but
There
there
was no,
was kind of a yes,
just
this
more
feeling of
genuine
warmth.
and just very like family. Now you can be with friends and you're like looking at them side eye. You know what I'm saying? But back then it was like everyone was just cool. There was no animosity. It was no
Yeah.
jealousy. Everyone was just all, on the same page. And it was just great. So I was blessed to be, oh my God, I'm getting emotional.
Oh, go
I was
ahead,
just,
girl.
just blessed to have had been in you all's circle, yeah, because you guys are like my friend. You all love me for me.
Yes.
That's what you cannot you can't you can't trade that out. And I know now today, seeing it looking back,
Hmm.
I'm very grateful. So thank you, Lori. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you, Robin. I
You know,
felt equally blessed.
Kenny Wallace, everyone, even
Oh,
though
Kenny Wallace, thank you for bringing his name up.
yes,
John
yes.
Jordan.
John Jordan, oh my God. And
Yeah.
Wes, remember Wes, little Wes,
Yes, of course.
and Caesar, they did my baby shower.
Caesar. Yeah.
Caesar
Caesar
died.
died. Yeah. So these are people who are no longer with us. And
Yeah.
I just it is hard, it is emotional and hard to think about. We're coming up on Black HIV/AIDS Awareness Day, and we
Mhm.
lost so many of our friends,
Yeah,
the Kevins, both the Kevin Rose and Kevin. Remember those guys, Kevin Pegues and
yes, I do. And I was so sick when I heard that, you know.
yeah.
I've been
Yeah,
living here.
so we've lost a lot of people. It's funny because I think you bring up a really good point that often gets skipped over when we talk about house music history, is that
Mhm.
it was coinciding with the AIDS epidemic.
Yes.
That was happening at the same time that we're talking about, the Warehouse and Power Plant and Music Box and Chippy and Steve Hurley and, all
Mhm.
of those iconic names, Vince
Mhm.
Lawrence. I could go on and on. There
Right.
was this other side of things where people were getting really sick, and these young men who were our friends,
Right.
not surviving past their
Yeah.
20s.
Yeah. They got caught up in that, because it was such free love and it was not
Yeah.
so, it was just like I say, different times and just
Yeah.
the way that people were moving. You can zig and zag, not the same way that you could then than we do now. So
Yeah.
it was just a real scary time. But I do remember, like, as far as like the music, when my dad was doing his show on, I want to say WXFM, and he
Hmm.
had the Punk Out Hour. And
Right.
again, not a lot of people know that when I was in school in Dallas, and I would
Hmm.
come home in the summer. And while I was in school, I made friends with this young woman. She was a European descent, and she was like a punk rocker.
Okay.
And then me, Miss Preppy, we just looked like oil and water, but we just connected. And I would go to her house after school, and she had a
Hmm.
beautiful home. And she would play this song by Devo called Whip It.
Oh, yes, of
Love
course.
that song. Remember that? You know,
Yes.
I,
You
I
must whip it.
take your mama's back. No.
That's
So
right.
I bought the record home, and I'm like, Dad, I go, you got to hear this. I go, love this song. So he played it in the studio. He was like, Robin, he goes, I don't know. I said, Dad, please. He's like, okay. So he played it.
Hmm.
Girl, the phone lines lit up.
Hmm.
And at the time, my dad's engineer was like, he never seen anything like it. So that kind of spun and created Dad to kind of donate or designate an hour of like kind of like punk out. Then he introduced
Yes.
B-52s and then Rock Lobster, and then from that. So yeah.
That's funny that we talk about house music and we don't ever, I didn't say we don't ever, but we don't talk enough about the influence of punk music
Right.
and other kinds of types of musical genres that
Mhm.
we were into at the time. But
Right.
we did call ourselves punks. I don't know that we were hardcore like your friend. We were like preppy punks.
Exactly. We were like approachable, non-threatening punkers. You know what I'm saying? We had our little
Yes.
fashion, Lori wearing Aisha with her black shiny police shoes. No one
Oh my
was
God.
doing, she's wearing big overalls. Remember that?
I do.
So I mean, just yeah, and she kind of put me up on little fashions here and there because she was like, "Girl, you can't be going out with us wearing no damn penny loafers and a plaid skirt."
Oh, I used to love that look. You look like you were straight out of Catholic school going to the clubs. I was like,
I know, partying and drinking and smoking and like looking like I'm going to rough. It was weird, but hey.
and you already looked like a baby. You still look super young, but back then Robin was like, how old is she? Like, is she 15? Like,
Because no one was really dressing like that. It was
that's
weird,
true.
but it was fun though. We all looked we had our own little eclectic little clique, and
Yes.
we worked together well.
I think we did. And I love that you brought into it fashion, because fashion is another thing that was, when we think about house music culture, and I'm talking about like pre when we were calling it house music, but we were just saying we were punking out, or we jacking our bodies, or whatever the term was that we use. If you can look at those flyers, none of them say house music, not till like mid 80s, late 80s, you know. But it was the same people that moved from this era to that era. And that's why I think we sort of claim it all as house, right?
Right.
It was the
Under the
same
same
people.
umbrella.
I like that. Yeah, it was an umbrella, and all those folks were under it, sort of through those different genres. But fashion was a big part of it.
Oh yeah.
You know, Aisha was, I think, all of our influencers. She was like modeling a bit, and you know, sort of getting into that and teaching us all how to sort of present better.
Oh yeah.
Caesar was the same way. What a
Oh,
beautiful Caesar died, beautiful guy.
me
Yeah,
too.
we miss him. What else? What else do you remember about fashion? Because I know that you curate your style so well. Even today, when I see you, I'm just like, she is so always well put together. I feel
Thank
like
you.
I'm like a grunge monster. I'm like, okay, I got to clean up my act when I see Robbin.
No, no,
But
but Lord, you have such a beautiful spirit, and your smile and just your finesse and persona outshines a pair of shiny shoes or a dress. You know what I'm saying? But for
oh,
me, and I want to be honest with you,
yes,
growing up, okay, I'm the only child, I'm the sole heir, right? But
right.
I was always a skinny little frumpy, like I always had like little short haircut. And my mom, my grandmother, she was like, listen, with Robin being so skinny and little afro, people may think she's a boy. My name is
Okay,
Robin, so
okay, that's true.
so if you notice or remember, I always wore bangles on this right hand.
Yes.
So, people would know that, okay, she's got to be a little girl. She's jingling, her little bangles, whatever. But for me, growing up, I was kind of like a little ugly duckling. So
No.
I had to dress a little more, be more attention to detail, put it that way, to accommodate for not looking so, you
No,
know,
I don't know. I don't buy that at all.
but I grew into it. I mean, I was always a little insecure in that way. That's why I always had like beautiful girlfriends, you, Aisha,
You're sweet.
so, you know what I mean? Just, I don't know, just kind of to elevate
Yeah.
me because I just felt like a little, you know, yeah.
That
But
is so that's hard. That's interesting to hear, especially, you know, growing up you know, with Herb Kent as your dad, being
mhm.
surrounded by celebrities. Yeah, talk more about that. How why would you feel insecure in that setting?
I mean, because for me, it was just a time of when everyone just seemed to be in a different, like I wasn't being looked at as
Okay.
everyone else was, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. Like I would see how men or women would look at other. I'm like, well, they don't look at me like I'm cute or pretty. They, oh, I
Hmm.
like your shoe or your dress, or but you're such a. I don't know, it was just a little weird, little
Yeah.
mind, whatever. But I pushed through it and just
Yeah.
became very comfortable with myself.
Yes.
And now, when you get older, of course, you become a little more knowledgeable about life and how things work. And it's not about really
Hmm.
how a person looks, but how they
Yeah.
make you feel and about the experience that we can make together. So it's just changing with time. But I'm very blessed in a lot of ways to have
Hmm.
been exposed to a lot of different things and have met a lot of interesting people, coming up. And, it's been touch and go. My
Hmm.
life has not been all milk and honey. I
Yes.
can
No one's
say,
is.
right. And I'm proudly here today to tell you that I am a product of a recovering addict. Okay. I've got 30, 29, 30 years clean and sober.
Oh, congratulations.
Same thing with my father. He's a recovering addict, so if I can be inspirational or be some type of you know, something to gravitate to if you're struggling with something, because
Yes.
it is an illness, and also, you have a choice, and for me, it was me reaching out to my family saying, hey,
Hmm.
I need some help. Things are, this wheel is getting kind of rickety, I need some help. And
Yes.
once I reached out, and then I never looked back. So,
Amen. Amen to that. I think that you hit on something that we also don't talk enough about. And unless there are brave people like yourself who will talk about their experiences and what it means to sort of move through what you might consider a dark period. But you
oh
know, I
yeah,
also think in the darkness things grow. You know, it's a time for pain, but it's also a time where people when they experience that and they move through it, they're stronger because of it.
exactly.
And it's so important for people in our community to understand they're not alone. I
No.
had a friend who I was just talking to, and they were telling me their story. And I said, you know what? When you talk about your story, I wish you would. I wish you would talk more about like that period in your life where you were struggling with substances and you lost your way,
Yeah.
because when you came out of it, you were so much better.
Exactly. And and then too, drugs and that party scene, and me being my father's daughter, just to go back a little,
Hmm.
it was never like a monetary thing. It wasn't like I'm stealing from my family or I lost my job. It just was so much of like in that era, it was what people were doing. It was, you
Right.
know, it like Studio 54 kind of, but in our own little community. Um,
Right.
and then to a lot of the guys, like, the people who were serving the lovely pharmaceuticals, they were, oh, that's Herb's daughter. She's cool. Just give it to her. So that
Oh,
made it even
wow.
worse. So just because it's free didn't make it right. It was too much, and
Yeah.
that could be also a downfall too. So I knew at the end of the day, 6 months into getting into that whole little craziness, I
Hmm.
caught myself and I knew I
Hmm.
wasn't feeling myself. I wasn't looking myself, and that's when I
Hmm.
knew I said, hey, I need to get some kind of help and
Hmm.
just reel it in a little bit, and so thankful and so grateful to have gone through that when I did versus like now. It may have been not the same outcome.
Right.
And I've got friends, unfortunately, who didn't make it out of that, who are still, caught up in the drinking and doing whatever, whatever, and they're
Hmm.
just kind of hanging on. So I pray for them. I don't judge. I'm here. I'm a soundboard.
Yeah.
Whenever you're ready, I'll go with you to NA to AA meetings. I don't mind.
Yeah. That's really
Support.
great. I
It's
know
about.
that right now in Chicago, and I guess this is happening everywhere,
Mm.
we have a fentanyl problem.
Ooh, yes, yes,
It's
yes.
really, really bad. We,
I've had two of my friends who lost two children from that. So it's very like, yeah, it's gut wrenching. You have to be careful and just it's a whole different ball game. Yeah.
yeah, it is. It's not like you can just sort of hang out with people you don't know and do cocaine. And I mean, it's crazy.
Because
And
young
I mean, several people that I know uh, who lost folks who were close to them, children, siblings,
people,
parents,
yeah.
sometimes people in the whole family.
Hmm.
So I mean, it's a cautionary tale, I think, for people who are listening to this and thinking about it and maybe are casual drug users. It's nothing casual about it these days. If you don't understand where it's coming from, and
Right.
even then, there's things that you can buy. You can buy test strips, to test. I mean, I'm just talking harm reduction right now because I know that people like to get high.
And they want
People like to get drunk. It's part of our culture.
and today is so different. It's a lot more bells and whistles, from when we were doing it. I
Yeah.
think they have a bigger variety to choose from. And it's so just unstructured and it's just a mess. You never know. People are doing things to be so spiteful and so mean.
Hmm.
Yeah. So you got to be careful.
Yeah,
You know,
I've heard that. I've actually heard that this might be some retaliation across the border for legalizing marijuana. Uh, that's,
for
that's a whole nother show. That's
another
a
day.
whole nother show. But
Okay.
let's talk about your dad. I think, he was clearly, one of Chicago's earliest African American DJs.
Mhm.
He worked at a lot of stations, iHeart Media 103 FM, and as you mentioned, the earlier stations, a Hall of Fame. He was known as the Cool Gent. Maybe we can start there. Where does that name come from?
Oh my God. So Herb Kent, the cool gent, daddy, he told me he got that name from, well, my father went to Northwestern. He was very
Yes.
smart, but he didn't end up finishing because he got a job, I think, in Gary doing at a station there. But
Hmm.
um, a group of his friends, they would always tease my dad. They would go, Herb, they say, you're so cool. You're so cool. No, they say, you're so cool, but yet, you're still a gentleman. Like he was always a gentleman
Yes.
to the ladies. So they just kind of cut it in half and just put cool gent. So it's
Hmm.
like Herb Kent, the cool gent. He's so cool, he's froze in his clothes. So that's
I kind of love that.
isn't that cool. And then Herbie Baby, that came like later on,
Herbie Baby. I remember hearing that on the radio. Herbie
that,
Baby.
that lady was like an older, she had like a little kid
Yes.
voice, and he would play that in his opening, monologue. She
He
would go,
was great.
mm-hmm.
I
But he,
know. So you mentioned that he went to Hyde Park High School. That's a high school in Chicago South Side. A lot of musicians, a lot of famous people, DJs have come out of that high school. It's
oh
just
yeah,
It's got quite a legacy of its own. But I
Mhm.
read somewhere that he had a teacher that once told him that he would never be a radio broadcaster because he was a Negro.
Exactly. And
But
that just crushed him. It crushed him to like, are you serious? But it
mhm,
crushed him in a sense of it made him push even harder, you know.
yeah.
He got into like they had like a radio or some type of a club that he got
Hmm.
into, and
Hmm.
that kind of elevated him to move forward. And then he was able to meet Hugh Down
Yes.
later on in life, and that was a really changing pinnacle in his life because Hugh had helped Dad get this position at the radio station. My father had, he was calling, and they were talking to him over the phone. My father has
Hmm.
always had a very, grand speaking voice and his
Yes.
enunciation, so they just assumed that he was a white guy. So he goes to
Interesting.
the station, and they're like, they're just being kind of dismissive, like, oh, okay, yeah, delivery's in the back. And he's like, no, I'm Herb Kent. I'm here. They were like, well, hold on one sec. It was like one of those kind of things, like, guess who's coming to dinner? So they had to wait and, they called HR and they were like, well, saying, no, we're not really interested or blah, blah, blah. So my father went and spoke to Hugh.
Hmm.
Hugh made a phone call and Dad went back, and that's how my dad got that job at that particular radio station. I don't remember the call letters, but that was one of Dad's first, professional gigs, and from there, never looked back.
That's wonderful. And he worked it with WVON, also known as the voice of the Negro,
Oh
uh,
yeah,
for
from
some time.
77 until all the jocks got fired. Okay, in 77, 78, because it was a big scandal called the Big Payola. I don't know if
Oh,
you remember.
wow.
Yeah,
Talk more
Herbie.
about that.
Oh my God. So for me growing up, okay, so my father would work. Okay, the station was located on Kedzie Avenue.
Hmm.
And, during the daytime, VON, the offices, people coming in, you had your salespeople and, different radio execs coming in. So at 5 o'clock, the office portion was closed. But Daddy worked in the evening from like 8, I think it was like 8 to midnight or 7 to 11, something like that. So by the time Dad would get there, it was like dead. So when Parliament was in town or the Ohio players, they would all
Hmm.
come to the radio station, just like they do now to interview
Of
them, whatever.
course.
So Dad was always entertaining them in that lovely party format. You know what I'm talking
Of course.
about. I mean, it goes with the territory. You know what I'm saying? Love
Yes.
stuff, rock and roll, baby. No. So, and I remember several times, busting in the studio, seeing things that my eyeballs should not have seen, but I
Right.
still have my faculties to this day. But it was just a lot of fun. It was never a dull moment, and just
Yeah.
running around the station and getting into things and just seeing all the different, celebrities that would come in to be interviewed. Now, mind you, Dad would sometimes bring them home. So
Hmm.
my mom now has to get up, entertain and, 3, 4 in the morning. It was
Yes.
crazy. And I grew up in 9801 South Harvard.
9801 before. Yeah. And then, yeah, okay. That's
That
out
was
there.
Yeah, South Side. It's like the house is beautiful now. Someone they bought it and redid it.
Yeah.
It looked totally different. But yeah, but we were there up until like right around the time Dad got fired. Things were changing. The neighborhood was getting a little rough.
Yep.
We had 2 break-in attempts at our house. So Dad had to have police sitting at because people knew where we lived. You know what I'm saying? So things would get
Yeah.
really weird. And yeah,
You're
it was that.
vulnerable. You were
Mm-hmm.
vulnerable in that space.
Yeah.
So let's move forward a little bit. Dad stayed on the radio probably longer than I think he was the longest serving DJ in Chicago, maybe beyond that.
Listen, Daddy is in the Guinness Book of World Record.
Hmm.
He is the oldest, only living disc jockey in the world. Okay. And it's so
Wow.
ironic. He was 88 years old. Dad passed away in 2016,
Hmm.
October 22nd, 2016.
Yes.
And he worked that morning. Okay. Dad is the only disc jockey in the world also who worked, 2 days a week.
Hmm.
Excuse me. But Sunday, working an 8-hour gig. Most jocks only work 4 hours.
That's
If you
right.
so on Sundays, that was a long day for him. So
Hmm.
he dedicated that 1 hour to he created the Battle of the Best, and
I
then had
remember that.
different guests come
Yeah.
in and just keep it entertaining. Daddy was a great storyteller. He
Hmm.
can play a song and tell a story or scenario about that person or just anything. He was like a walking encyclopedia of
Yeah.
knowledge of music and radio. He built his first radio. He was like 16 years old. The Trend
Wow.
video. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was really smart, very smart man. And I
Yeah.
miss him
Well,
so much.
oh yeah, I know you do. What if you can think of some music that was dearer to him that you would hear around the house or that you would hear him play on the radio? Like what
Really.
I know he had millions of songs in his head, but what stands out for you is like this is essential Herb Kent.
Oh my God. Like he would play, and we would have like classical music, he would do like a lot of old, I can't remember. Oh, I mean, they were like old songs that he would
Mm-hmm.
like. He was just he was like a big kid. I
Mm-hmm.
can't say that he liked he didn't like rap. I know that, again, he was like that. He was like, Robin, turn that shit off. And once I put on Tupac and it was like some gunshots in the background that were coming up in the song and he didn't know it. And I turned
Yeah.
the volume up and he was like, damn it, Robin. And it scared him so bad.
Oh, poor baby.
But it was hilarious. But no, but Dad would always mostly just play like, stuff from like in the 40s and the 50s. Like, oh my God, I can't think of the names now that
Mm-hmm.
escape me, but he just had a big variety. He liked it all.
He liked the oldies, but he liked the new stuff. I mean, you brought him into the pre-house punk music era, and he was doing punk out hour. Wasn't
Right.
it? It was called what was it called?
The Punk Out Hour.
Yes.
Punk Out Hour. And it was, I want to say on a Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
No, I can't, because he worked, it was a WX, was it WX or WBEZ or WXF? No, not XFM. It was, oh my.
Was that
That,
that was not on WVON?
no. WVON, no,
Yeah.
no. This was like in the 80s. I was in high
Yeah.
school because
Okay.
yeah, graduated in 83. So we're talking like, because after all the disc jockeys got let go
Yeah.
from that scandal, he wasn't working. So
Okay.
then he got a job at that station. I want to say WBE's. I can't remember.
He was at WBEE for a while, WMAQ, one of those. But anyway, it was an important era, I think,
Yeah.
because we were hearing ourselves. We were,
Mm-hmm.
he would do advertisements. I think I mentioned to you, like when I heard Herb Kent say, DJ Lori Branch is doing a party with Vertigo. I was like, how did, of course, our guy, we were paying for the advertising, I think, or maybe not. Anyway, he did us a solid, but he would promote like local DJs and he promoted mixes and, it was a really cool era that you were responsible for. I know you were responsible for bringing
Yeah,
that, into
absolutely.
fruition. So Robbin Kent is an architect of house music. I'm saying this to our executive producer, Lauren. So, it's so good that we're having this conversation. But
Yeah.
we're all sad that you lost your dad, that we lost Herb Kent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and happy that he had a full life. I know there were some challenges after his passing, and I don't know if you want to get into that, but I think it would
Yeah.
be helpful for viewers and listeners to understand sort of what's come of that and what's next.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So for me, it's been a true journey,
Mm-hmm.
losing my father and then shortly having to go into fight mode for what was rightfully mine.
Right.
This particular woman, you can read about it in the paper, but I'm not
Sure.
here to speak negatively about that person. But the insidious move that she did in regards to my father was
Mm-hmm.
a very it was very negative. My father was sick. Not a lot of people knew that my dad had dementia.
Mm-hmm.
My father taught at Chicago State for
Mm-hmm.
18 years.
Mm-hmm.
And even, the students and the faculties, they were noticing that he was being a little forgetful
Yeah.
and was, beginning to repeat things over and over. Now, the difference when you're working on the radio, you're on the mic, you're behind, no one can really see you.
That's
So
true.
they were kind of, navigating dad a little more. He was becoming more like he was still comfortable in what he did because he'd done it for so long. But
Mm-hmm.
I could hear him on the show and he would say things like, okay, so now what are we doing again? Or okay, so now you can hear him.
Yeah.
I can hear it. And just the way he was beginning to interact with people on the radio was becoming a little sharp and like, oh, dad, that's a little edgy.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't the same because when
Right.
you become ill like that, you begin to come, like, hey, a perfect example, the woman on the Golden Girls and how their mother would just say what was ever on her mind.
You're just totally unfiltered.
Exactly. That's what
Yeah.
I was becoming. And some people, like, they know dad had a great sense of humor, but it was becoming like, ooh, a little strange.
Yeah.
So that was happening, and then the fact that this, the woman, my dad's girlfriend, had did the classic move and was separating me from my father.
Hmm.
She moved him all the way out to the suburbs, with him
Mm.
being sick. Why would you move someone out of their
Right.
territory and give them more
Mhm.
confusion? So there's a lot of issues on that. But fast forward, as of September 28th of 2022, I
Hmm.
won my probate case and I was granted my father's estate. So now I'm the executor of the Herb
That's
Kent estate.
great.
Yeah, my lawyer, who is amazing, Christopher Berghoff. If you need any help in probate, please call him. And that's another thing I want to let people know, the
Yes.
importance of to put your affairs in order. It doesn't matter if you're rich, whatever, if you have three nickels to rub together,
Yes. Put your
because when
affairs in order.
yeah, when people die, you're already in a cloud from losing someone. Then you have to now fight over property, a car, a shoe. Don't do that. So if we can put down 10 grand on a Range Rover,
Hmm.
okay, or a mink coat, let's take 30 minutes and put a will together, which costs less than $500 or less.
Absolutely. I
Because I
really
don't
appreciate you saying that to people. Everyone needs to do that.
have to.
It's really important.
It is. And a perfect example, Laura, you and I are sisters, right? And our mom
Yeah.
died. You want to sell the house. I don't want to sell it. Now we're
Right.
bickering, and our mom is not, so don't do that.
Yeah,
Yeah, just make it easy transition as possible for
that's
yourself.
right. So what's next in preserving the legacy for your dad?
Oh my God. So I'm glad you asked. So my attorney, who's amazing, Christopher Berghoff, he has found an amazing company out of LA called
Mhm.
CMG Worldwide. And what
Okay.
they do is out of Beverly Hills, and they represent dead celebrities. So I'm going out in the morning, as a matter of fact. I'll be there for
Wow.
like 5 days. The young man, his name is Wyatt, and he's going to be over my father's, estate, or just his likeness, shall I say.
Hmm.
With that, we're going to be doing a relaunching of my dad's book, which you see here, The Nine
Yes.
Lives for Kent the Cool Gent. We're going to be doing podcasts down the line. We're going to be doing merchandising. I want to do a yearly memorial concert to raise
Hmm.
money because I want to give back. I have to do a scholarship. My father was very, very big on education.
Great.
So, some other things I want to tell you off camera, but just moving forward, we're
Okay.
going to keeping it moving. We're going to do a documentary. We're going to do the Herb Kent story because I want people to know the real Herb Kent and just
Yes.
insight, because they've done Whitney Houston's story 5 times. You've done Elvis
Yes.
10 times. Okay, we get it. We know who he is, but not a lot of people in the world have ever heard of Herb Kent, number one. Number two, the fact that he is the oldest living disc jockey in the Guinness Book of World Records.
Yes.
What's his story, the peaks and valleys, how he lost everything and came back. He beat
Yes.
just all of that. It can be encouraging. And also, Lori, I want to also try to see if I can get Daddy in textbooks, for education for
That would
people
be great.
in Switzerland, from Japan, who are in school for communication or
Hmm.
broadcasting. Hey, who was this guy, Herb Kent? Yeah. So it's a slew of things, and I'm so excited.
Wow. Well,
So
you know what? I can't tell you I just get chills thinking about the potential there because the
mhm.
world needs to know Herb Kent. And
Yeah,
I'm
I think
so
so.
glad that you are taking that legacy, your family story, and sharing it with folks because we're going to be better because of it. And we are better because he was here. And we're
Absolutely.
better because you're telling his story.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for. I mean, from here until, my feet go underground, that's going to be my mission and my journey. That's my job.
Wonderful.
To keep
Well, we're
all.
here with you. We are standing with you, whatever you need. And I know you got a ton of friends and fans out there. So if you're watching, send your love and support and all those good things to Robbin Kent as
Yes.
she goes on this journey to really tell the story about her famous dad. And I hope we hear more of your story too, Robin, because
I'm
I
going to do
tell
a
you,
story called Being Herb Kent's Daughter.
all right, see, there it is. Because that's important. Like people don't talk about kids as celebrities, like the real story. And what you've shared today, I know is just the tip of the iceberg. So we look forward to hearing more.
It gets greater later.
Amen to that. Amen to that. All
Yeah.
right. Well, Robin, I'm going to let you go. I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm so happy that we're still in contact with each other. I'm going to be crashing your pad in Miami eventually because it's too damn cold in Chicago.
Listen, all you need is bring a toothbrush and a bottle of tequila, and you're welcome.
I can do that.
All right,
All right,
love.
sweetie. Thank you so much. We'll talk soon.
Thanks for listening to the Vintage House Show podcast. Please subscribe and share, and check us out live, WNUR 89.3 FM, Wednesdays at 10 o'clock.